to set aside $850,000, or half of the money that had been budgeted for the LEAP program this year. And the other half was set aside for an abbreviated LEAP program, or a different LEAP program. Of that, the Sheriff's Department submitted an ordinance fairly early in April, and they were awarded $416.6 thousand in hazard pay, leaving a balance of $433.4 thousand in the hazard pay fund that we set up. So we then asked other departments who thought they would qualify or should qualify for hazard pay to submit also their requests in the form of ordinances. And we accepted those at the committee meeting in August. After that time, those ordinances were wrapped into one ordinance. Instead of having 13, 14 ordinances, we have now one ordinance, 10820. We have 13 departments who are requesting a hazard pay. And we had also asked them to pay hazard pay from any unspent salary lines that they had in their departments at the time. Then the balance would be paid from the hazard pay fund that we had created. So of the 13 departments, only 5 requests needed to have complete or partial funds from the hazard pay fund, and were able to fund out of their salary lines. So the total amount coming out of the hazard pay fund is $59,129, with leaving a balance of $374,271 in the hazard pay fund at this time. And the departments were rated based on tier levels. We chose 3 different tier levels, tier 1 being the most exposure, and that standard was set by the Sheriff's Department. Then tier 2, that was a little more exposure than, or a little less exposure than tier 1, but didn't quite qualify for tier 1. And then tier 3 was more of the employees who had to come into the office who could not work from home and were exposed to other employees, et cetera. So that's my report.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Any questions from council for Councilwoman Hess on Bill 108-20?
No question, just a comment.
Mr. Catanzarite?
Just want to thank Councilwoman Hess and all those who have labored hard to work on defining the hazard pay tiers and really laboring over deciding who gets what and who doesn't. And there's been a lot of thought put into it, and I appreciate the time that was taken, and I'm glad that we're at the stage we're at now that we can offer this up to the employees who have put themselves at risk to keep our community functioning and running like it should. But I want to thank specifically Councilwoman Hess and anybody else who's helped her with this, and I appreciate all the effort that's going into putting this ordinance together.
Any other comments? Hearing none, I'll open the public hearing on Bill number 108-20. Does anyone wish to speak in favor of this bill? Does anyone wish to speak in opposition of the bill? Hearing none, I'll close the public hearing on Bill number 108-20. May I have a motion?
Move for approval. Second.
A motion to pass Bill number 108-20 was made by Councilman Kanaricki, and it was seconded by Councilwoman Hess. Any further comments from any council member on 108-20? Hearing none, clerk, will you please take the roll?
Mr. Krasinski?
Yes.
Mr. Nolan?
Yes.
Mr. Fowle, are you here yet?
Yes.
Aye.
Okay. Ms. Hess?
Yes.
Mr. Toloyan, are you here yet? Mr. Catanzarite?
Yes.
Mr. Kanaricki?
Yes.
Mr. Root?
Yes.
Mr. Morton?
Yes.
Motion carries 8-0.
Thank you. Let the record show that Bill number 108-20 was passed by a vote of 8-0. Clerk, will you please read the next bill, Bill number 119-20?
An ordinance amending ordinance 8019, the same being an ordinance establishing salaries and fixing the number of employees of St. Joseph County for the year 2020, petitioner probate court.
Mr. Krasinski, committee report, please, sir.
President Morton, this comes to the council with a favorable recommendation.
Thank you very much. Petitioner? Petitioner?
Is Brenda not on? Brenda Matthews-Skavich?
I am here.
Okay.
The CASA program is requesting the appropriation of $383,118 for the next 2 years, starting 10/1/2020. And the appropriation request that would consist of salaries, FICA, PERF, and group insurance for 3 positions. This grant that we are receiving is a reimbursement grant and requires no match by the county or the state office. And there is a match component for this grant, and Brian Gates, our attorney, would be the match for vocal requirements.
Any questions from council? Thank you. Hearing none, I'll open the public hearing on bill number 119-20. Anyone wish to speak in favor of this bill? Does anyone wish to speak in opposition of the bill? Hearing none, I'll close the public hearing on bill number 119-20. Do I hear a motion?
Motion for
for
passage.
approval.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Who made the second?
I did. Bobby K.
Thank you. A motion to pass bill number 119-20 was made by Councilman Catanzarite. It was seconded by Councilman Krasinski. Any further comments from any council member on 119-20? Hearing none, clerk, will you please take the roll?
Mr. Nolan,
Yes.
Mr. File,
Aye.
Ms. Hess,
Yes.
Mr. Catanzarite,
Yes.
Mr. Kennerecki,
Yes.
Mr. Root,
Yes.
Mr. Krasinski,
Yes.
Mr. Morton.
Yes.
Motion carries 8-0.
Thank you. Let the record show that bill number 119-20 was passed by a vote of 8-0. Next on the agenda, we have public hearing and public comment on fiscal matters. All financial issues were heard and discussed at our November 24th, 2020 committee meeting. Is there anyone who wishes to speak in favor of any financial issue on tonight's agenda? Is there anyone that wishes to speak in opposition of any financial issue on tonight's agenda? Hearing none, our public comment is now closed. Clerk, will you please read bill number 118-20?
An ordinance appropriating and transferring monies for the purpose herein specified for the several departments herein listed of St. Joseph County government.
May I have a motion on bill number 118-20?
Move for approval.
Do I hear a second?
Second.
A motion to pass bill number 118-20 was made by Councilwoman Hess. It was seconded by Councilman Kanaricki. Are there any other comments from any council member on the bill 118-20? Hearing none, clerk, will you please take the roll?
Mr. File,
Aye.
Ms. Hess,
Yes.
Mr. Catanzarite,
Yes.
Mr. Kanaricki,
Yes.
Mr. Root,
Yes.
Mr. Krasinski,
Yes.
Mr. Nolan,
Yes.
Mr. Morton.
Yes.
Motion carries 8-0.
Thank you. Let the record show that bill number 118-20 was passed by a vote of 8-0. Next, we have the Land Use Planning Committee. Clerk, will you please read bill number 105-20?
An ordinance amending and supplementing Title 15 Land Uses, Chapter 154, Planning and Zoning of the St. Joseph County Code as amended for property located at 16700 Cleveland Road, Granger, from OB, Office Buffer District to R, Single Family District. Petitioner, Shepherd Warren Partners, LLC.
Mr. Nolan, committee report, please, sir.
President, this comes to the full council with a favorable recommendation.
Thank you very much. Area Plan?
Hello, Abby Wiles, Executive Director of Area Plan Commission, Department of Infrastructure Planning and Growth. This property is located up on Cleveland Road. It is just west of State Road 23. It was rezoned from to office buffer in 1985. Surrounding land uses are predominantly single family and light office, with heavier commercial uses located to the east along State Road 23. The site is served via private well and septic. Utilities are located further east. There is more information about the petition on the packet on the website under the Agenda Center. The petitioner is proposing to utilize the property pretty much as is, with the exception of some construction of egress stairs, exterior egress stairs. That's in northeast section of the property, and then doing an interior remodel. Petitioner, well, rather the purchaser, who is one of the co-petitioners, will use the property as a primary residence. She will provide adult residential services for up to 3 folks with cognitive impairments, and then provide adult day services for up to 10 individuals, also with cognitive impairments. The residential component is approved via a reasonable accommodation request that is submitted to the area plan and approved administratively. But rezoning from office buffer to single family will allow the combination of uses that she's proposing. In terms of the statutory criteria for rezoning, it hits all the marks, and it had a favorable recommendation coming out of APC, as well as favorable with the committee last week. And I will answer any other questions if there are any.
Thank you. Any questions from council for Area Plan? Thank you very much. Petitioner? Petitioner?
This is Abby Wiles with Area Plan speaking again. I know that the petitioner had joined the Area Plan meeting via teleconference. So we would be looking for a Peter Rinks, Ayana Redding, or a representative of Shepherd.
Oh,
Hi,
here we go.
everyone.
Peter?
Yes. Hello. How are you guys?
Good.
Good. Well, I want to thank you all for your service and helping our county during this time. I know it's a stressful time, and this isn't the usual format, but I'm excited to talk to you about this project, and very thankful for Abby and her team and the zoning department helping us navigate this. So I bought the building a little over a year ago, and it was originally designed as a home, which is pretty obvious. The home was about 20 years ago turned into an office building. And so when I purchased it, I knew that it needed a special tenant that would value it as a home that has been converted into an office. And that's when Mrs. Redding, who has an adult daycare, became interested in the building itself. And she provides a really valuable service to our community with the watching the elderly during the day while the other responsible parties aren't able to watch them. And so she does classes with them and arts and crafts and takes them to the movies. And it's a really neat service that she provides. And right now she's in more of a commercial, sterile feel environment. And she wants to be in more of a home type building. And so that's when she became interested in my space, and I became excited to bring her on. But navigating through the zoning and the appropriate approvals, the home, her type of service has to be in a residential zoned area. And so that's when we began the process of turning the home office back into a residence so she could provide her service. And so I'm thankful for the attention that it's gotten, for the help that we've got navigating through this, and happy to answer any questions anybody might have.
Thank you very much. Any questions for the petitioner from council? Hearing none, I'll open the public hearing on bill number 105-20. Does anyone wish to speak in favor of this bill? Is there anyone that wishes to speak in opposition of the bill? Hearing none, I'll close the public hearing on bill number 105-20. May I have a motion on the bill?
Motion for passage.
Do I hear a second?
Second.
Motion to pass bill number 105-20 was made by Councilman Catanzarite, and it was seconded by Councilman Krasinski. Any further comments from any council member on 105-20? Hearing none, clerk, will you please take the roll?
Ms. Hess?
Yes.
Mr. Catanzarite?
Yes.
Mr. Kennerecki?
Yes.
Mr. Root?
Yes.
Mr. Krasinski?
Yes.
Mr. Nolan? Mr. Nolan?
Yes.
Thank you.
No problem there with the mute button.
No problem. Mr. File?
Aye.
And Mr. Martin?
Yes.
The motion carries 8-0.
Thank you. Let the record show that bill number 105-20 passed with a vote of 8-0. Clerk, will you please read the next bill, bill number 107-20?
An ordinance amending and supplementing Title 15 Land Uses, Chapter 154, Planning and Zoning of the St. Joseph County Code is amended for property located at 60724 Locust Road from I Industrial District to R Single Family District. Petitioner Legacy Assets LLC.
Mr. Nolan, committee report, please, sir.
Mr. President, council comes to the full council with a favorable recommendation.
Thank you. Area plan?
Right. Abby Wiles, Director of Area Plan, Department of Infrastructure Planning and Growth. This property is located down on Locust Road, south of Johnson, north of Kern, east of Locust. Total acreage is approximately 45 acres. It's currently zoned industrial. Developmental patterns of the surrounding area are predominantly residential, single-family residential. There are, oh, I apologize. There are, Beverly Crone Restoration Area is located to the north of the property along Johnson. There is a farmhouse, and it's being used as farmland currently. The site plan submitted with the petition shows a 3-lot subdivision that will also need to be approved via a separate subdivision approval process. The lots are lot 1, approximately 11 acres, 2 is 6.5, and lot 3 is 28.1. As proposed, 1 single family home could be constructed on each of the lots to address some issues that were, not issues, but rather questions that were raised during the APC hearing. Access from the property would be from Locust, not from Lilac. And then, as I said previously, 3 lots are proposed at this time, which means 1 house could be constructed per lot and a separate approval process for the subdivision. And then I know that Terry Lane is on the call, and if there are any questions, he can answer them as well. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Any questions from council for area plan? Petitioner?
Yeah, my name is Terry Lang from Lang, Feeney and Associates, representing the petitioner here, Legacy Assets LLC. Legacy had acquired property recently and was trying to set it up so that the existing farmhouse and outbuildings could be split off separately when it came to their attention that the property was zoned industrial. Back when the old Jackson Road landfill was active, several of the parcels around there were zoned industrial. This parcel has always been a farm home and tilled farm ground. And to continue ahead with this process, we would like to have it rezoned from industrial to residential such that the home can be sold off separately along with the 2 additional lots as single family home sites.
Thank you very much. Any questions from council for the petitioner?
Yeah, I have a question just for education. Industrial is a much more broad property valuation than private. So why would you want to go from a broader program to something more narrow? Is that because you can't split it up if it's considered industrial?
Well, the ability to sell the home off to somebody that wants to use it as a home, they will not be able to get financing with it being zoned industrial. And at this point in time, they're looking to put in residential homes on the other parcels. So it just makes sense to rezone the whole thing. And all of the surrounding properties are residentially zoned anyhow.
Okay, then for my education, that affects then the bank in terms that they don't want somebody else to have an industrial zoning that might affect the value of the property.
They will not loan money on a home that is zoned industrial.
Okay, thanks for the education.
Abby, with area plan, just for clarification, if you have a use that's within a zone that isn't permitted, it would be considered non-conforming. So every time, you want to do something, whether it's add-on or refinance, you have to jump through hoops, and it's much cleaner to align the land use or the zoning with the actual land use.
Thank you very much. Any other questions from council on 107-20? Hearing none, we'll open the public hearing on 107-20. Do I hear a motion on the bill? I'm sorry. Does anyone wish to speak in favor of this bill? Does anyone wish to speak in opposition of the bill? Hearing none, I'll close the public hearing on bill number 107-20. Do I hear a motion?
Move for approval.
Do I hear a second?
Second.
A motion to pass bill number 107-20 was made by Councilman Nolan. It was seconded by Councilman Kanaricki. Any further comments from any council member on 107-20? Hearing none, clerk, please take the roll.
Mr. Catanzarite,
Yes.
Mr. Kanaricki,
Yes.
Mr. Root,
Yes.
Mr. Krasinski,
Yes.
Mr. Nolan,
Yes.
Mr. File,
Aye.
Ms. Hess,
Yes.
Mr. Morton.
Yes.
Motion carries 8-0.
Let the record show that bill number 107-20 was passed by a vote of 8-0. Clerk, will you please read the next bill, bill number 116-20?
An ordinance to vacate a public way or public place located within the unincorporated portion of St. Joseph County, public way or public place located at that portion of Krause Avenue bound by Purley Avenue to the south, Margaret Street to the north, lots 167 to 180 of Lexington Park to the east, on Jefferson Knolls, Section 2 to the west, and that portion of Pearlie Avenue bound by Lot 166 and Lot 167 of Lexington Park and vacated alley between them to the north, Brink Avenue to the east, the south line of Section 4, Township 37 north, Range 4 east to the south, and Lot 48 of Jefferson Knolls, Section 2 to the west, Penn Township, St. Joseph County, Section T37N, R4E. Petitioners David Duberville, Gregory A. Parker, and George Ebright.
Thank you, Mr. Hammond. Mr. Nolan, committee report, please.
President, this bill comes to the full council with a favorable recommendation.
Thank you. Area Plan?
Good evening, Sean Klein, Infrastructure Planning and Growth with offices on the 11th floor of the County City Building. The staff finds that the vacation would not hinder the growth or orderly development of the unit or neighborhood in which it is located, as the county has no intention of improving these sections of street right-of-way, and it's currently impassable due to heavy vegetation. Furthermore, the lots which only front on the unimproved portion of Krause Avenue are well below the minimum lot and frontage standards and likely could not support septic systems and be developed as single-family lots. Furthermore, the vacation would not make access to any properties difficult or inconvenient. The rights-of-way are not currently being used for access by any adjacent properties, and the parcels which only front on Krause Avenue are owned by residents of abutting parcels to the east or parcels across this right-of-way to the west, and they're effectively just being used as backyards at the moment for the properties that do contain houses. Furthermore, abutting property owners have been notified of this public hearing and can state any objections they might have this evening. We also find that the vacation would not hinder the public's access to a church, school, or other public building or place, and it would not hinder the use of a public way by the neighborhood in which it is located or to which it is contiguous. I'd be happy to answer any questions, and the petitioner is also on the line if you have any questions for him.
Thank you. Any questions, council? Thank you very much. Petitioner?
Yes.
Any further comments you'd like to add?
No, I'd just like to see it closed. Then that way I'll be able to put up a barn, pole barn.
Okay. Any questions from council for the petitioner? Hearing none, I'll open a public hearing on bill number 116-20. Does anyone wish to speak in favor of this bill? Does anyone wish to speak in opposition of the bill? Hearing none, the public hearing is now closed on 116-20. Do I hear a motion on the bill?
Move for approval.
Do I hear a second?
Second.
A motion to pass bill number 116-20 was made by Councilman Nolan. It was seconded by Councilman Krasinski. Any further comments from any council member on 116-20? Hearing none, clerk, will you please take the roll?
Mr. Kennerecki,
Yes.
Mr. Root,
Yes.
Mr. Krasinski,
Yes.
Mr. Nolan,
Yes.
Mr. File,
Aye.
Ms. Hess,
Yes.
Mr. Catanzarite,
Yes.
Mr. Morton.
Yes.
Carries 8-0.
Thank you. Let the record show that bill number 116-20 was passed by a vote of 8-0. Next is bill number 114-20.
Thank you.
Please read the bill.
An ordinance of the St. Joseph County Council amending Chapter 91, Air Pollution Control of the St. Joseph County Code. Petitioners, Mr. Krasinski Jr., Mr. Catanzarite, Mr. Kennerecki, and Ms. Hess.
Thank you very much. Mr. Kaczynski, committee report, please, sir.
Mr. Morton, this comes to the council with a favorable recommendation.
Thank you very much. I guess I should say petitioners.
No. I can speak first, Mr. Morton, at being one of the 4 co-sponsors of this bill. Back in the early stages of the pandemic, when we started dealing with hazard pay and the COVID issue, it it was brought to our attention by Mr. Catanzarite that with the respiratory issues that this has caused, we need to look at the air pollution ordinance or leaf burning ordinance to help the help secure or help issues that could be caused by people burning leaves in the fall or burning in general. We got tied up in hazard pay for a couple months. About early summer, I received a call from Councilman File that he wanted to get this moving. We had a meeting at Mr. File's office indicating that we should press forward with this, and there was a plan that we would talk to the township fire departments, the health department, and the sheriff's department, and get their initial response to us changing the ordinance. And when I say changing, I mean trying to be consistent with Chapter 91 of the St. Joseph County, Indiana Code of Ordinances in the health department. After I met with talked with 7 of the fire chiefs in the county, a few of them sent back requests what they would like to see in the ordinance. I'd like to thank Mr. Triple for taking some of their concerns and do you hear me now, Raphael?
Yes.
Yeah.
So I discussed and met with the fire department chiefs. I believe Mr. Kent Catanzarite talked to the New Carlisle fire chief, and the biggest concern they have was with the burn amnesty, and some of the fire chiefs had concerns of some of the residents or contractors not getting the permits from the local township fire departments when they go to burn. So after doing that and meeting with the health department, when Dr. Einhardt and Mark Esper from the health department, and sitting down with the sheriff and discussing this with the sheriff, and then us 4 co-sponsors of the bill sat down with Mr. Triple, and Mr. Triple suggested that we rewrite the ordinance. And really going back to looking at a previous ordinance that was passed in September of 2012, all we're trying to do here is be consistent and put a little bit more teeth into it to give the township fire departments and the sheriff's department a little teeth in regards to fines. Now, fines are nothing new. Fines have been on the books already through the health department in this Chapter 91. All we're doing is, like I indicated, is to give the sheriff's department and these township fire chiefs some teeth in regards to fines. Now, when we say fines, it's not like they're going to rush out there and start issuing fines when people start burning. They still can open burn based on if they have a fire pit and they get permits, through the township fire departments. Fines, as indicated in Chapter 91, they can vary from anywhere from $10 to $1,000, with their first initial response being a warning, and that's slipped up to, the township fire departments and the sheriff's department. I believe this is important. I want to thank the other co-sponsors of the bill, and I thank Mr. File for moving this forward, because he thought this was a very important issue at the time, and it still is. And that's all I have. I don't know if anybody else in regards to the co-sponsors would like to elaborate on the ordinance.
Mr. Morton?
Yes, sir.
Just kind of springboarding off what Bobby Kurzynski said. It's really a matter of, health and safety, and even COVID aside, as important as COVID is and how it's impacting our country and our county right now, anybody with any kind of a respiratory illness or chronic obstructive pulmonary disease like asthma or emphysema, quite often in the fall, really when leaves were burning, people had to really quarantine themselves in their homes and be away from any kind of activity like that, because it could affect their respiratory health and put them in a terrible condition. And I've seen that before firsthand. So even without COVID, we probably should have had this on the books a long time ago. I can appreciate what the commissioners had tried to do with the amnesty weeks in the past, but really it's kind of burning the leaves is kind of a thing of the past, unfortunately, in terms of safety and health in our community. And again, trying to dovetail on what Bobby said, it's not about enforcement, not about creating fines. Our hope is that a citation never has to be issued, that a fine never has to be collected, or that the county attorney never has to get involved in collecting a fine from somebody. Hopefully, the county police, the township fire chiefs, people will heed their warnings when they come to their homes and they tell them to advise them to put the leaf fire out, and there won't be any need for a written fine or a written citation. So I think the ordinance sends a message to the community that we're serious about not burning leaves, and that we've taken proactive steps to provide leaf collection systems in the fall for many years now. And the burning of leaves is just not a safe and healthy practice. And I think that's where we all came from when we tried to draft this ordinance and revise the one that was passed in 2012. I don't know if anybody else has anything else to add to that. Please chime in.
Are we open for open comment? Or are we still with the council?
Yeah, we're still taking comments from the petitioner.
All right.
Which are the four sponsors.
I'll chime in, Joe Kandarecki, just really quick. I think the other sponsors have explained this really well. A couple of the reasons that I thought this was important is, one, living within a municipality, it's always a little bit cloudy in terms of what rules apply where. So seeking out that consistency, throughout the calendar year is important, but also seeking that, throughout the geography of our county is a real benefit to the people that live, on one side or the other of a municipal boundary. And, the other aspect, I think when in the past, county burning was more prevalent, the density of the population, the types of subdivisions that have gone into our county, it's changed. We're seeing a lot more dense development, and ultimately this could create, beyond the respiratory concerns, but even a fire hazard. I mean, this is why a lot of municipalities don't allow burning, because you can't do it safely in regards to distance from a structure, and that's more commonplace in the county, as we develop more and more areas. So I think it's a responsible thing to do for public safety in several different ways. And it also says something about our county in terms of a quality of place. And if we want to attract, young professional families or have them stay here if they're already here, we need to continue to make progressive changes that say we're ready to welcome that sort of person here. So that's why I am in favor of it.
Thank you very much. Any other comments from any of the co-sponsors of 114-20? Thank you. Any questions from any other council member for any of the four
Mr.
co-sponsors?
File here.
Mr. File?
As Bobby said, I'm very much in favor of this. The question I get is, to the extent that this is going to be enforced. I think that the township fire departments don't want to get involved with anything where there's a penalty. On the other hand, it'd be awfully nice if they were to give initial recommendations, when something happens and they say to the individual, you should not be doing this. And the other question is, as we all know, there are quite a few people coming to us with incidents of fires in not following this idea. And so I'm wondering who those those people that complain? What's done with those complaints? How do we have some kind of a central approach to getting some kind of enforcement?
Mr. Morton,
Yes, sir.
was that a comment or a question from Mr. File? Do we know?
Well, that's
I
a
believe that
question.
was the
That's a
question.
question in terms of what's done. As you all know, as councilmen, we're getting quite a few people saying that so-and-so is burning leaves right down the street.
Right.
And I'm wondering how it is that the county's going to coordinate some form of enforcement.
Mr. File, I guess my answer to you would be that we would, if this passes tonight or at some point in the future, there'd have to be an educational period where we bring law enforcement, the firefighting community, the PSAP together. I know that Mr. Krasinski has spoke to Mr. Schultz, our PSAP director. PSAP has a way of tracking locations by address and by locations given by callers. So, I mean, there'd have to be a effort between, and I forgot to mention the health department too. The health department, the county police, township fire departments, and PSAP to track this. And Mr. Schultz indicated he has the ability to track these types of complaints and be a repository of the information. So if, say, a fire unit goes out there one day and it's a different shift, 2 days later, they don't know about that call, the PSAP would have it on record that this is the second call to that address for the same complaint. There's a way of keeping track of that. And I think, you know, there'll be a learning curve. Again, our hope is not to use the enforcement arm of it if we don't have to. The hope is everybody's going to comply and realize it is to be a good neighbor and not burn your leaves and do the right thing. So, and again, this, and I don't know if it was mentioned earlier, this does nothing to impede agricultural practices. You know, if anybody in agriculture has to burn a fence row and they tear it out and they put it in a pile, those kind of fires are permitted. Typically, those people have to, people in agriculture have to apply for a permit from the health department and have the township fire chief sign off on it. This ordinance does not affect that type of fire. That's still allowed for agricultural practices. But I think, you know, there'll be a small learning curve, Mr. File, and we're all going to have to get together and work on an enforcement template that we can all agree to and work from. That's my response to your question.
I think that's a very good response, and I appreciate it.
Yep. If
You're
I
welcome.
can make one more comment, Mr. Morton, if I can make one more comment on that.
Yes,
Mr.
sir.
File, also, in regards to the fines, the first stage of the fine is a warning. And in talking to the township fire chiefs, they really don't want to fine anybody. They're mostly the residents when they go out, or even if the sheriff's department goes out, they're pretty good at putting it out. And they know that now they'll know that the next time around, it won't be maybe just a warning, you know, though it could be, you know, it's after that second call out to that same address, it's the discretion of that township fire chief or the sheriff's department, you know, if they want to initial a ticket. But most of the time, from what I'm hearing from these chiefs and from the sheriff's department, is that they put it out and they're pretty good about it. So there is a warning first before they get into the fine part of it, you know.
Thank you very much. Any other questions or comments? With that said, we'll open a public hearing on Bill number 114-20. Is there anyone that wishes to speak in favor of this bill?
Yes, I would.
This is St. Joe County Auditor Mike Hammond. Very briefly, I'm very grateful to the sponsors of this bill, and I concur with all their comments. I appreciate Mr. File moving this forward, bringing it up. And I think, you know, Mr. Kanareki brings up a really good point, too, about, you know, what kind of a community are we going to be? You know, if we're going to be a progressive community that cares about quality, air quality, and quality of life issues, then it's pretty important to do this. And I think, you know, Mr. Catan's right, his point about the safety, huge deal. So I know we got to work out some details. I know you guys are going to work on that, but this is a major step forward. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Is there anyone else that wishes to speak in favor of this bill?
Yes, I would, please.
State your name, please.
Okay. My name is John Van Bruini. I'm the Penn Township Territory Fire Chief. I live at 15250 Kern Road here in Mishawaka. As this bill is in reference to general health issues and understanding, of course, the additional health issues we are dealing with at this time, I agree with this bill 100%. However, knowing that these types of fires, which are occasioned not properly controlled, often cause additional damage to property. And I can tell you firsthand, for 45 years in the fire service, this is not something that's once in a while, it's quite often. And a threat to human safety. For that reason, I am 100% in favor of this ordinance.
Thank you very much. Is there anyone else that would like to speak in favor of this bill?
I would, yes.
Please state your name and address for the record.
Joshua Schweizer, I'm the New Carlisle Fire Chief. I live at 33859 Somerset Lane, New Carlisle, Indiana. I would like to also piggyback on what Chief Van Breen said. You know, to go along with the health issues, I am an asthmatic, right? And, you know, the leaf burning, especially over probably the last 10 years is, you know, the amnesty, what conceptually was great, but has been taken advantage of, and the commissioners have been taken advantage of in that aspect. And we live in not in a unique situation as a rural fire department, but you know, those amnesty weeks come up, and you know, when the corn also gets to that point, and we're in amnesty, it becomes a free for all, and then it gets into the cornfield. Now we're talking about farmers losing crops, and it just becomes a whole bigger level, and so now we're talking about people losing money, you know, health and safety of lung issues, and now fire safety for the crews in the middle of these fields. So I am very appreciative of the council members and the support of this bill, and I do also support this. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Is there anyone else that would like to speak in favor of bill number 114-20?
This is Peter Augustino, 21515 Elkton Court, South Bend, Indiana. I support this bill. I just want to bring to the council's attention and follow up to Mr. Files' questions. Townships do not have the power to issue licenses or impose penalties. They're specifically prohibited under state law from doing so. So I just bring to your attention that for future enforcement, it's going to be something that needs to be handled by the county council by ordinance with respect to that. I just wanted to make you aware of that as well.
Thank you, Mr. Augustino. We appreciate that information. Is there anyone else that would like to speak in favor of bill number 114-20? Is there anyone that would like to speak in opposition of bill number 114-20? Hearing none, I'll close the public hearing on bill number 114-20. Do I hear a motion?
Motion for approval.
Do I hear a second?
Second.
Motion to pass bill number 114-20 was made by Councilman Krasinski and was seconded by Councilwoman Hess. Any further comments from any council member in regards to 114-20? Hearing none, clerk, will you please take the roll?
Mr. Root?
No.
Mr. Krasinski?
Yes.
Mr. Nolan?
Yes.
Mr. File?
Aye.
Ms. Hess?
Yes.
Mr. Catanzarite?
Yes.
Mr. Kanareki?
Yes.
Mr. Morton?
Yes.
Motion carries 7-1.
Thank you. Let the record show that bill number 114-20 was passed by a vote of 7-1. Clerk, will you please read the next bill? Bill number 115-20.
An ordinance amending and supplementing Title III, Administration, Chapter 34.15, A, Maintenance of Petty Cash for the St. Joseph County Department of Health. Petitioner, St. Joseph County Department of Health.
Thank you very much. Mr. Krasinski, committee report, please, sir.
Mr. President, this comes to the council with a favorable recommendation.
Thank you very much. Petitioner?
Yes, this is Amy Rupie, Finance Manager for the Department of Health. We are requesting an increase of $500 to our petty cash for all of the units within our department to reduce the amount of times that we have to go to the bank for change.
Thank you very much. Any questions from council for the petitioner? Hearing none, I'll open the public hearing on bill number 115-20. Does anyone wish to speak in favor of this bill? Does anyone wish to speak in opposition of bill 115-20? Hearing none, the public hearing is now closed. Do I hear a motion on bill 115-20?
Motion for passage.
Do I hear a second?
Second.
Motion to pass bill number 115-20 was made by Councilman Catanzarite, and it was seconded by Councilwoman Hess. Any further comments from any council member in regards to 115-20? Hearing none, clerk, will you please take the roll?
Mr. Krasinski,
Yes.
Mr. Nolan,
Yes.
Mr. File,
Aye.
Ms. Hess,
Yes.
Mr. Catanzarite,
Yes.
Mr. Canarecki,
Yes.
Mr. Root,
Yes.
Mr. Morton.
Yes.
Motion carries 8-0.
Thank you. Let the record show that bill number 115-20 was passed by a vote of 8-0. Next on the agenda is unfinished business. Next is new business. Next is a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Do I hear a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 Opposed?
Aye.
The ayes have it. This meeting is adjourned. Thank you very much.